there wasn't really a tipping point. A lot of Christians want to conceptualize it as like, so what was the one thing that made you say, fuck God? First of all, I don't say fuck God. Secondly, there wasn't one thing. It wasn't like, oh yeah, my dad died, and then I was like, no, it was like all of the things that held together my tapestry of faith were slowly plucked one by one until I didn't really have a faith left. Three, two. Are we rolling? Is this live?
So why are you where you are now? That's the question that I've been waiting to ask you for. I never see you anymore. We talk on Facebook every once in several months and try to like catch up, but I don't know. We used to just talk about where we were at when we were in college, and we haven't. Well, we've kind of done that. I've always been kind of hoping that you could tell me the whole story at some point.
Oh, geez. Have I not told you the whole story?
I don't know. I don't know if I know exactly how we got here.
Oh, wow. It's funny. Yeah, it's funny that you phrase it like that. How did you get here? What's the whole story? So, shortly after I graduated, or maybe it was. Yeah. It was the year after I graduated. One of my good friends from Wheaton. It was her senior project to write a biography about me, like a piece about me.
Okay.
And the story was titled "Leaving the Faith," and she did like a masterful. It must have been like 20 pages.
Wow.
Like overview of my story. And then just a couple days ago, my mom said that she wanted to read it, and so I went back and reread the whole thing. And it's interesting, like hearing, the way that she phrased some of the things, super meticulous, excellent. Like she was so careful to get like all of her facts straight. It was really impressive. But then, she's a believer. And the kind of like humility that she was able to present my story with was really humbling.
And you felt like she did it justice too, like she didn't leave out.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I remember always running into this wall with you and trying to talk about anything that like I wanted to go to a certain level of depth in a conversation, and you always had this you wanted to sort of protect me because you're like, I've seen these dark demons. I've looked into this abyss, and you don't want to go there.
Yeah, and that's partially probably me just being melodramatic. You're a grown-ass man. You can probably handle it.
Well, I wasn't at the time. Who knows if I could have handled. I definitely had an existential crisis when I finally did sort of peer at some of those questions and wrestle with them myself. Mm-hmm. But is your confidence in Christians changed, or you just don't care if the world kind of crumbles under their feet if they ask a tough enough question now?
No, I still.
So I don't know if that wasn't a gentle enough way of phrasing that question. That kind of just fell out.
No. Like it's something that I kind of go back and forth about on. There are some Christians whose faith I absolutely do not respect. They're bullies with their ideology, and to the pastor who's like yelling and bitching at his congregation, because they're not trying hard enough. And then he's sleeping with his wife, and he's, stupid, and he's, not compassionate to the other side of the aisle, and not trying to be, a genuine listener, and then it's like, yeah, I don't have any qualms about knocking you down a peg because you're a pretentious prick. But then, like, God, dude, I don't know. Looking at some of these kids, and just how kind and wonderful they are, and you know, they put their everything into this, and at the end of the day, for them, that means, you know, everyone around them is the image of God, and I want to treat everyone as the image of God. That's what their faith means to them. It's like, who in the fuck do you, what kind of a fuck do you have to be to like want to destroy that for people?
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I want to make you view humans as worms. You know,
but I mean, that's not how like, that isn't even, and any person who's sort of rejected a faith narrative doesn't just go. I mean, that's sort of the caricature that you tell yourselves about within the Christian communities, that, oh, if you don't believe in this, then that means you're immediately going to become a horrible person and think everybody's just worms and dirt. But that's not
right.
That's I assume that's not your experience, because you don't treat me like dirt.
Well, I do think you're worthless. I mean, my view of you and the rest of humanity has substantially diminished. That being said, I love you. I love the shit out of you now more than ever. But as like an objective view, yeah, it's gone down quite a bit. And I don't like that. But I think that, you know, I'm still reeling, you know, because when I converted, it was in the middle of, you know, the whole new atheist apocalypse, right? You got Richard Dawkins and all these fuckers who, you know, I've read some of their stuff, and some of them I have a lot of respect for. But for a lot of them, it felt like, yeah, let's squash their hope. It felt mean, and it felt like they were, you know, taking the worst of Christianity, and they were letting, you know, that be the stand-in for all Christians. And so they were, you know, directing their speech towards all Christians, but they had in mind, like, oh, Kenneth Copeland, you know, I'm gonna treat all Christians like they're Kenneth Copeland, and I'm going to talk down to them and condescend to them, and I'm going to eradicate their hope, and I'm going to make it plain to them how stupid their belief system is. And I think about that, and I think about the 13-year-old kid who is quivering, trembling in fear of the thought of there not being a God. Just, you know, existential dread just dripping out of me. And I think of some old prick just being like, yeah, no, you need to grow up and you need to get over it because God is dead. And frankly, you're fucking stupid for even thinking that God is real. It's like, fucking kill yourself. I don't, I mean, it makes me so mad.
Just to think about that kind of smugness.
That kind of smugness and that kind of just that desire to kill hope in somebody. And I get it, you know, like I'm not the kindest towards people who practice astrology and tarot, and but it feels different to me. You know, if it's like, on the one hand, you know, if somebody is practicing tarot and astrology and they think like, oh yeah, it's, you know, kind of neat, that's one thing. But if somebody is like, no, I do this because it makes me love humans more. It makes me see the value in other people, and like, I want to give back to my community, my friends and family through this. And then some guy comes along and says, well, actually it's bullshit and you're a stupid idiot for even thinking. I don't know.
I mean, when you make sort of an appeal though to like, okay, to loving humans more, caring about, giving back to a community, it's for some reason those values are easier for us to kind of swallow, even post the sort of death of God. Like you say like, oh, we should love each other, but like, I mean, the most sort of consistent version of nihilism is like the Rick and Morty, none of this matters. Might as well. If this family's not working out, or this entire planet or this universe isn't working out, I'll just delete it. I'll just hop over to a one that's mathematically extremely inconsequentially different.
Yeah. 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 And I think about that a lot, with, kind of simulation theories and one of the interesting things is like, it's one thing to think about the simulation theory in the sense of like, okay, well, if I could hop into a simulation and be perfectly happy, would I, if I could leave this life behind and live the rest of my life in a utopian bliss where I'm so coked out in dopamine that I'm just like the most pleasurable moment of my life. It's like that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Would I do that? And most people would answer no, because they know that it's not real.
Yeah.
But here's the harder question.
Okay.
Would you do it if you could then forget that it wasn't real? That's harder. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, it's still, it assumes that even, well, I mean, I don't know. It's different depending on your whole kind of perspective on reality, because I don't think that my, even just biologically, I don't think that the signals that my brain would be getting, or even whatever deeper sense of me, my consciousness, my experience of reality, I don't think that I would, even if I was overwhelmingly full of pleasure, I don't know if that would be enough.
Well, so what if you phrased it like, you could give yourself the sense of pleasure and the feeling of having meaning?
And the feeling of having meaning. There, and that's the version of the see.
So it's not just hedonistic
I
orgies
sort
all
of
day.
Yeah, I know. I think I sort of, that is sort of my experience of living, anyways. Like I think I don't know if this is just like the orthodox way of being a Christian, or like the only way I can figure out how to be a Christian is to kind of sometimes back and forth, sometimes kind of hold both things in tandem at the same time in this weird, like trying to put magnets together that don't belong together, of like, I don't think that objective meaning exists, but at the same time, I believe that meaning exists. Maybe it's not objective, or I don't know. It's like I mean, I talked to a professor recently from not too far away from me, and he describes himself as a non-theist, which is somebody who, I mean, the reason he wanted to sort of invent that word, maybe you've heard it, but it's like a rejection of the principles of being either a theist or an atheist. He's like, I don't think that's the right question. I don't know if I can explain it well enough, but it's basically like God exists, or God doesn't exist. God exists as a non-being, or like there's something that's sort of beyond existence. And it's weird and kind of backwards. I don't even know if, at least maybe intuitively, is there anything about that catches you?
Well, that wouldn't. So I would love to hear like how he explains that and fleshes that out.
Yeah.
For me, when I initially deconverted, my best friend Kevin and I, we converted around the same time, and we deconverted at about the same time, and so that's some brotherhood kind of stuff. Some stuff that we've got in our books together, where our stories overlap. But there was that whole question of like, well, are we agnostic or are we atheists?
I love that you guys sat down and had this conversation together. So what do you want to be?
What? Okay. Well, no. It wasn't like we sat down and like decided like, all right, well.
So we're starting a new club, and what do we want to call it? The Atheists or the Agnostics?
We're either the Atheists, the Agnostics, or the Pen 15 Club.
I think you should have gone with Pen 15.
Should have. I missed out. No, yeah. So like the way that I ended up landing on it is I don't feel like the term agnostic properly describes me, not because of its, proper philosophical definitions, in whatever Cambridge dictionary says agnosticism is, but instead just like the cultural connotations of that word. It makes it sound uncertain. It's like, well, I'm agnostic towards the claims of Christ. Well, no, I'm not agnostic towards them. I've dismissed them. I don't believe that they're true. And so like I'm atheistic towards, Christianity. Like I don't think that Jesus was the Son of God. I wish that he was, but I don't think that he is. And likewise, it's not like I haven't examined Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and some of the other smaller ones to some extent or another. It isn't like haven't looked at them and haven't made a decision yet, because I have made a decision. If like in Christian theology they talk about faith without works is dead, and it's like, well, if you believe in the microphone, you talk into it. Well, I've made that decision, and I sufficiently don't believe in the Christian God that I am comfortable living my life in a way that is conventionally sinful. I'm having premarital sex. I'm getting blackout drunk. All of these things that are naughty.
Naughty boy, Jaron.
And I'm not, asking for forgiveness for those things, right? So I actively do not believe that they're true. It's not like I'm waiting or trying to decide. That being said, it's like, well, what about the question of a higher power? And this is where things get tricky, because obviously there's no way to disprove the idea of a higher power. But then Christians tend to really harp on that, and they feel
they
like
make this big jump
gotcha.
immediately, like yeah, and therefore all of Christianity is true.
Right. And I mean, there is a train of thought where it's like, okay, well, if we presume that it's possible for there to be a God, then we can presume that it may be possible for miracles to be true. And if it is possible that miracles can be true, then it is possible that Christ rose from the dead. And if Christ rose from the dead, then that would validate the writings of the apostles. And if those are validated,
I hate when people try to whenever I try to read like some apologists, they'll sit there and just like, because they have to fit it all into one written apology, they walk through that whole step by step, and they're like, okay, well, just follow this and just believe it all now. Like, I can get behind the idea that, like, I think I exist, and that's like step one to believing in existence at all. And then maybe beyond that, I think other people exist. A little bit less certain about that than myself. I kind of have the little bit of the Descartes, I think therefore I am. I think I know.
Right.
I have the most deep experience of myself thinking and myself experiencing. Therefore, I'm most convinced of myself. But I mean, that's still. I mean, I'm still starting with sort of arbitrary, maybe not arbitrary, whatever, intuitive axioms that aren't sort of perfectly mathematically logical. I'm just deciding, okay, well, this is what I feel most sure of. Like believing in anything, it's like it's this gradual. What would you say? Like a kind of a gradient, and it's like as you got down that list of all those things, like okay, if it's possible, there's a God. Okay, I think it's possible there's a God. Some days I really deeply believe that, and it's like and then okay. Now I'm pretty consistently. It's like over the course of maybe a year or two, I start to feel really comfortable with the idea that I actually think I believe this. I think I believe that in God and there being a God, and then but I don't know the idea of like Jesus Christ being like his claims, like what does that mean to be the Son of God? Did he even really mean he was God? I don't know. And it's like the actual experience of being part of a faith isn't just this little sequence of interlocking arguments that if you follow down, then suddenly you believe it all.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a tangent, but it's just something that kind of frustrates me.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and that's tricky. And I think that, where I'm at as a human right now is like I have so much deep respect and empathy for a Christian who is genuinely wrestling with that. Right? I mean, like, there's a reason why the great patriarch of Judaism, well, one of them at least, Jacob, it's like, yeah, he was famous for wrestling with God. And you can undermine all of that by saying like, well, Abraham was the patriarch because he had blind obedience to God, like, but just follow with me,
But they didn't call the nation Israel. It's Jacob's name, Israel, So
facts.
Fair enough.
I wonder if I've never thought about that. Is that a analogy to how Jacob wrestled with God, but is that supposed to be taken as like, yeah, the rebellious Jacob wrestled with God? Huh.
The rebellious? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, was yeah, Jacob wrestled with God. There was toiling there, and I know that like in the Old Testament, that's one of the motifs that happens again and again. Is like, yeah, rebellious Israel rebels against God again and again, and he sends another prophet, and Israel rebels, and he sends another prophet, and Israel rebels. So like, is that?
Yeah, like I don't think that story would have been something that would ring true for as long as it has, if there were many people who were blindly obedient, because that doesn't ring true to my experience of life. I don't like just being blindly obedient.
Right.
A story that puts me in touch with a deeper meaning needs to be something that I can relate to, I think.
Yeah. You know who my most played artist of the year was?
Who?
You're not going to believe this.
Let me think. Oh, now I know it's an L. Well, is it Luke Howard?
Who in the hell do you think I am? Do you think I'm you?
Yeah, I think you're me. I project myself onto you all the time.
Fair enough.
Lloyd, my dad?
Your dad was my most listened to Spotify artist. No. God.
What? I don't know.
It was Lecrae.
Lecrae. Damn.
I am a 27-year-old atheist who listens to Lecrae for the nostalgia factor.
Okay. That much as your most listened to.
Yeah, which surprised me because I was like, really? But apparently I had like some of his albums just on like constant repeat, or I guess I just went through enough of a season that that he was my number one. But he's got this one line in one of his more somber songs where he goes, "I walk with a limp because I've been wrestling with the Holy Ghost." And he says it and he's like almost crying. It's like, yeah. And that's been, I haven't come public yet about me being an atheist to my fans. And there's been a couple of times where people have like really pressed me, like the comments got heated and people are having back and forths, it's like a 20 comment section, and then they tag me in it and it's like, Jared, what do you say? Defend Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, or publicly acknowledge your hedonism. And my epic mic drop one-liner was, I, like Jacob, wrestle with God.
Wow. Mic drop.
And it made people really mad.
I like that it made people mad, because I mean, I guess I shouldn't like that.
It made the right people mad.
Probably, yeah. I'll allow that little indulgence. That's kind of sad to me, though. Like, it makes me even, go back to something about just the way I've started to see the world. And this is, again, I don't know, maybe you planted this seed in me. Like, I got so frustrated with you in so many of the conversations that we had when we were younger, because I feel like you were so sort of fatalistic. You're like, this is just sort of just going to happen. And I mean, there's a very small amount of influence you have over your life, and things are just going to happen the way they're going to happen. And, that's gradually worked its way into my worldview. And I think I would probably believe it now a little bit more than I sort of logic, or I don't know. There's a part of me that believes it more than another part of me thinks I should believe it. But I started to view things, every kind of large movement that takes place, in terms of, what came before it. And that kind of takes a little bit of the responsibility off of, individuals, or even if movements that I would be frustrated at. Because it's like, oh yeah, I mean, okay, I'm frustrated with the way you're acting here, but I can see the story that you're a part of, and I can see what you're responding to. I can see why you feel like you need to do this. Looking at the new atheist guys, these smug, jerks who want to just take everyone's hope. I mean, to them, they're taking hope, but I mean, they're saving people from a false hope. They're trying to destroy these who they see to be just sort of abusive jerks. But on some level, I mean, it does ring true to my experience that especially in, I don't know, the culture I grew up in, people were pretty quick to dismiss questions. Pretty quick. And I mean, and even I have compassion for them too, because I mean, the level of questioning, the level of trying to wrestle with God that you can fall into if you start to ask the right questions really can be overwhelming. And like, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just, that's the danger of an overly dogmatic faith, is that then if you ask the right questions, it actually does fall apart.
Yeah. Well, but I don't think it has to.
Okay. All right. Atheist Jared, defend Christianity for me.
I mean, I think that the most sincere faith is a faith that is challenged, and often at times on the fringes of being undone, of unraveling, to keep the metaphor consistent. Did you ever watch the movie Silence?
I read a decent bit of it. You recommended it because I know you read that in school, and you said it was good, so I started to read it.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that Wheaton made us read that, because it was hard. It was damn hard. But I mean, it's this question of like, yeah, the protagonist is a missionary to Japan, and it's hell. He thinks he's just going to go and convert the heathens, and it's like, no, this guy gave everything, and then gets himself just
boiled alive,
killed.
Right? It's like person after like all these different Christians are just like, they think that their faith ought to save them, but they keep on getting boiled alive by the Japanese authorities, right?
Yeah. And I think that when you go through that enough, you end up with a faith that is less, it's not that it's less dogmatic, but it's less dogmatic about the stupid shit. Like you stop being a diehard Calvinist because Calvinism is the end all be all of the Christian faith, or you stop being a diehard post-tribulationist, And when shit hits the fan, you realize, no, Christ loves me and he gave himself for me. And that's all I can hold on to.
Well, it's got to be something, though.
People,
there's going to be something you can hold on to anyways. It's interesting, though, because, I mean, that's the phrase that comes to you. And I mean, even the way you say it, it sounds like there's still some emotional, maybe just nostalgia, but there's that reminds you of a certain feeling. When I say, you know, that Christ loves me, and for some reason that phrase doesn't hit me.
Yeah. And it's weird for me now, you know, being as well read as I am into, you know, ancient church history. It's like I have a palpable separation between who I understand the historical Jesus to be and who I understand, you know, the Christian Christ to be. In my mind, those are like two separate entities. You know, the divine Logos, the cosmic Christ, that's in the book of John. I don't think that was the historical Jesus, who was a political rabble-rouser and probably an egomaniac.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that they were the same guy. If you're an Orthodox Christian, you think that they're the same guy. You think they're both. And I understand that and I get that. But for me, it's like, no, the Jesus that I worshiped at 5 a.m. before school, you know, every day of school in high school. No, I don't think that was the historical Jesus. I think that I was worshiping something grander. Yeah. So
that's, well, let's jump back for a second to your friend writing the story about you, because I feel like I want to actually, like, I want to get deeper into some questions, but I want to see if you can stitch things together a little bit more narratively first.
Sure. So I'll give you the whole overview.
Okay.
For everyone listening as well. You know, okay. This is the whole arc. 10-year arc of my Christian existence.
Could you share your testimony, Jared?
And boys and girls sit around the campfire. Jared's about to tell a tale. A tale of hope and woe and good old-fashioned chicken, peanut butter, and onion sandwiches. Made fresh in the Smith household.
True. I do miss those, actually.
God, you and Kevin were the only fuckers who like those. You sadistic fuck.
Yeah, hey, I would never have tried it if you didn't force me to eat it.
Am I going to eat one immediately after getting off this call? Yes, I am.
I have to buy the specific ingredients to do it properly. I don't even know if it would.
3 ingredients.
No, but it's you know, unhealthy Skippy peanut butter or Jiffy or whatever, which my family doesn't have. Chicken patties, which my family also doesn't buy, or I don't buy. And then what? Just bread, waffles?
Raw onions.
Raw onions. Holy shit. We did raw onions?
Yeah.
That was one, that was a real sandwich.
Oh, yeah, it was. That's my guilty pleasure to this day. It is my everything. My whole arc. Okay. I was 13 when I converted. And unlike most Christians who converted out of a place of hope or fear of going to hell, I came to Christ terrified of the possibility of there not being a God. The existential dread that gave me was so horrific, and sent me into such a panic and shock. Yeah. And so, I mean, the story goes that I was at a Christmas party and my older brother comes up to me and he's like, hey, you know that like God shit? It's kind of stupid. You know, Jesus wasn't real, which is bullshit, by the way. Jesus was a historical figure. But at the time, you know, he thought he was hot shit because he was a philosophy student in college. He's like, yeah, you know, that stuff is just bullshit. And I stopped in mid sentence, and something hit me, and I ran out to my mom's minivan. I stopped in mid sentence, ran out to my mom's minivan, and I started weeping uncontrollably. And I started praying, God, please be real. God, please be real. Because the thought of a universe that was not ordered by a God was so hellish to me that I couldn't bear the thought of it. And it was,
the reason it hit you that way, was it just because he was your brother and you respected his sort of opinion, or did you have some inkling of like fear about this before?
No, not really. Not that I remember. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, it was like my religion wasn't important to me. You know, it was like, yeah, I'm kind of a bad Christian because like I want to fuck. And you know, at 13 was like, you know, watching porn and whatever else. But like, I was like, yeah, I don't really like the rules of Christianity, but I guess it's cool and stuff. You know, whatever. Just stupid 13-year-old shit. But then somebody in authority telling me that everything I've ever been taught was a lie. I couldn't make sense of that. And I couldn't, my mind couldn't piece together what that would mean for the fabric of reality. And I panicked. And looking back, I mean, you know, any clinician would be like, oh yeah, you had a panic attack, right? But I mean, it was several in the months leading up, or like after that. It was like I would often have these like hysterical crying fits where I was just, God, please be real. God, please be real. And it was to the extent where I remember walking back inside and I was crying, and I just kept saying the phrase, I'm awake. I'm awake. And it was like the entirety of my life up to that point was a dream, and I had finally woken up to terror, to the terror of the possibility of the cosmos not having a God that sustains it. And so that was the start of my Christianity. It was begging and pleading God to be real and trying to convince myself that he was. And I was good at it. You know, I did due diligence. I studied apologetics, and I, you know, was part and parcel with the charismatic movement. And so was, you know, constantly looking for like miracles, signs and wonders. And, but then I also, you know, somewhere along the way, like fell in love with Christ, with God. And so, yeah. So, I mean, that love grew, and my doubts, you know, were suppressed for a time. I became the worship leader and the chaplain at my Christian high school, and then graduated from there, and, you know, thought I was going to be the next Billy Graham. And so then I enrolled with you at Fire School of Ministry, thinking I was going to be the next Billy Graham. And I
mean, you did it too. You Billy Graham'd it up. I remember like different times where you I don't know, like preached in public, and
it was cringy as hell. But
no, I mean, I was. It made me uncomfortable, but I a part of me really respected you.
It made you uncomfortable?
It made me uncomfortable. I was like, what the fuck is going on? But I know, is that not surprising? I guess maybe it made me feel like, oh, should I be doing that? I don't want to do that.
I remember being with Mike Reynolds in a Panera Bread, you know, like down the road from Fire School of Ministry. Also, for those who don't know, Fire School of Ministry is a 3-year non-accredited school of practical ministry.
Was.
So tis no more.
Still a lovely community of people that seem to, really be sort of earnestly pursuing something, and to get a church still around.
Yeah. God bless them.
God bless them.
But yeah, so Garrett and I went there. To all of my friends who don't know how to conceptualize that, I always call it a pseudo seminary. That's my title for it. Because I mean, looking back, like it was a rigorous program. Like the kinds of theology and classes and stuff that we do, like I have no trouble going toe to toe with somebody who's like a pastor who's been through seminary. Like rarely do I find that, oh yeah, his knowledge of the biblical corpus far exceeds mine.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
we definitely got the fundamentals there. I mean, I sometimes, I thought about this too. I thought like, because of some of the weirder or more silly experiences we had there, it was easy to kind of brush it off as, okay, this was just kind of a bullshit thing. But then when I think about it, I'm like, no, they covered the bases pretty good. We got our education.
Class on Romans.
I know.
We had an entire class on Corinthians.
I love those. Are like the two most memorable classes for me. But that's just because Steve Alt is freaking. He's the best. I love Steve Alt.
He's a G. So during my
credit where credit's due. Bobby G was responsible for Corinthians, I think.
Okay, you're right. Thank you for correcting the record.
So you're going to be the next Billy Graham.
Yeah, I was going to be the next Billy Graham then. And I still had my doubts and my concerns during that whole time. But, when I was in high school, at that point, I had become such a rigorist that it was like, yeah, I'm the only one in my immediate friend group who like takes Christianity seriously. And I was actively trying to convince people to like, no, like this shit is real and you need to live your life accordingly. Like nothing else matters. Yeah. Like you're going to die, your life is a blip, and then you're going to live all of eternity paying for it. I mean, it's like, it's like telling somebody with a gambling addiction, like, hey, you might not want to blow your 401k on the slot machine tonight. Just a thought, don't, maybe not.
Yeah.
That was what I thought I was doing.
When you can conceptualize it like that, it's like, how can you not just tell everybody? And like,
yeah, I mean, it is a rational thing. And that's one of the things that like that always frustrates me with, some of the more like flamboyant atheists is like, yeah, like all of this shit is just like so nonsensical and so like irrational. But no, like when you look at the actions of these people, there is a rationality to it. There is a consistency to it.
It's just that it's sort of too consistent and too rational. That's sort of almost the problem. It's actually, I'm reading, at least that's just rubbing off on me because I'm reading through a book by G.K. Chesterton with a couple of friends right now. And it's, he's this kind of like, really he's smart. He's got like this poetry to the way he speaks, and he can like make a point and like make you really feel it. He's an excellent aphorist, as another friend described him. He's good at aphorisms, which I didn't even know the definition of that word before. But he's great at saying saying stuff that sounds really true and in really short and succinct and catchy phrases. So he's just like almost every sentence in the book is like quotable. But and this is his description though of like what makes a madman is not somebody who's lost his rationality, but it's somebody who's lost everything but his rationality. Right? He's lost his sort of sense of wonder or humility about truth.
Yeah. And I mean, that was what made Rotterdam so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So
my third year.
So my final year at Fire School of Ministry, we had to do an internship, and I did mine with the satellite campus of Fire School of Ministry in Europe, which was located in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And those were some of the truest Christians that I have ever seen. And I mean, like, for those listening, you think about, the most religious people and you amplify that by 10. Like my roommate is during my time there, one of my roommates, he was a French guy named Pierre, and he was so much of a rigorist. He took his faith so seriously that he did nothing except read sermons and memorize the Bible. He would not listen to music. He would not browse social media. He would not watch movies. He did nothing except read sermons and memorize scripture, to the point where, during Sunday service, when we needed to do sound checks, I would just look at Pierre and I would say, "Hey, Pierre, Ephesians 4, verse 8. And he would say, "And then Christ came unto us," and he would just recite it verbatim. He had most of the New Testament memorized and a substantial portion of the Old Testament. And how could you not? This is all that matters. Everything is fleeting. Everything is vanity. Everything is fading away. And the only thing that is eternal is your soul and the souls of those around you. That was consistent Christianity to me. And so seeing him and seeing all of these other Christians who were, equally as devout or mostly so, it was incredible to me. Incredible and incredibly hard. Because there was no room for error. There was no room for fun. There was no room for, relaxing and I think that, Dr. Brown, the president of our college of Fire School of Ministry, he was more understanding about this, and he realized, kind of like Ecclesiastes has some stuff to say about this. There's a very palpable verse that says, "Beware of doing too much good," which I think is important. It's really striking, but the gist of it is like, dude, don't fall into the trap of forfeiting your humanity for doing good according to an ideology. And maybe that's harsh, maybe that's too stern of a way to say it, but these were the most devout Christians in my life, and it terrified me, because it was like, I don't want to live a life like this.
Yeah.
I don't. But this is true Christianity. If this is true, then I should live a life like this.
Yeah, that's an ugly feeling.
It was hard, and it was lonely. That being said, I had some moments where I felt like a Billy Graham superstar, because there was, times where there was one time in particular where I helped a couple of girls, run away from these drunk fuckers who were trying to physically harass and physically harass these young girls, and I was able to get them to safety and escort them home.
Didn't you say
and it was,
get thee behind me in Jesus' name, or something like that, and that shut him down?
No, I wish it did. See, that was my Christian sensibilities trying to justify the event. So what happened was, I think one of the two girls had had sex with one of these guys, and she, the guy was a creep and she wasn't about it, and she was like, and so they came up to them and they started talking in Dutch, I think. or something. I don't know. But basically we were like, yeah, we got to go. Cause you know, they were being creepy. And, then the guys start following us, and one guy starts yelling at her, and the girl is like 15. I mean, it was like 15 and 16.
Jeez.
They were young. And the guy was like, all of Rotterdam saw your vagina, bitch. And started like screaming these like
Jeez.
obscenities at them. And I was like, you know, guys, we got to go. Let's go. Let's just get the fuck out of here. Let's leave. You know, I want to make sure you're safe. And then they start following us. And it was really fucking creepy. And at one point, the guy's like breathing down my neck. And he's like, turn around, motherfucker. Turn around. Come on. You know you want to slug me. Do it. Fucking turn around. And the guy was bigger than me. I was wearing, you know, a giant Rotterdam jacket. And I felt so defeated and terrified. And I was like, I might actually get my teeth fucking kicked out. And I'm just trying to, you know, make sure these girls make it home okay. And so we walk, and it felt like forever. You know, it was like 5 or 10 minutes that they were just like breathing down our necks, like just, I don't even know. And then at one point, the one guy like grabs globs of dirt from a garden and starts, you know, hurling them at us. And then, you know, one of the other guys starts like taunting us, and he runs up behind one of the young girls and he slaps her on the back of the neck. And I was panicking, you know, I was a stupid 20-year-old and was like, what do I do? What do I do? And so I turned around and I pointed at the guy in his chest and I said, in Jesus' name, you will not hurt these girls.
I love that.
And, you know, he was just kind of like, you know, stopped and stared.
What are you going to do?
He was like, so you're a Christian, huh? And I was like, I am. And then, you know, immediately after I said, you will not hurt these girls in Jesus' name, that's when the guy ran up behind one of the other girls and slapped her in the back of the neck. And it's like, oh, yeah, it really worked. But then in my mind, you know, trying to like justify the situation, the girl told me afterwards, she was like, no, it's okay. It didn't even hurt. And I was like, that was the seal of Jesus on the back of her neck, protecting her from the... No, I think that's so damn hard, because you're trying to make sense of all of these phenomenon happening around you, and you're asking, what is God doing? You know, how do you make sense of that? Was God permitting him to slap her on the back of the neck? Or, you know, was I not praying hard enough? And had I prayed just a little bit harder, then he wouldn't have done it? Or did I not have enough faith? Or, you know, was it, you know, no, it was purely, you know, human intuition? Or no, it was God allowed that so that later on, you know, 3 years from now, once they had matured, they could remember that incident, and through some cosmic twist of events, you know, what the fuck is going on? And you're playing that game of, what kind of 4-dimensional fucking chess am I playing, where you don't know how to make sense of any of these things. And it's like, yeah, there's the physical, but there's, you know, there's angels and demons and devils and gods behind all of this. And you're trying to figure out what's behind the curtain. And you never know what's behind the damn curtain. God. So, it was a hard time being in Rotterdam. And I remember having, you know, a lot of doubts and a lot of questions, and just wondering, like, is all of this, you know, is this life? Is this the truth? And because if it is, then goddamn, this is going to be hard. This is a hard life to live. And the thing that, one of the real crushing blows to my faith, though I didn't really deconvert for another 3 years, but I read the memoirs of a girl who left the Westboro Baptist Church. And something about her story, just the way that she talked about the cult, the way that she differentiated herself from the cult, and some of the similar phrases that I heard led me to believe later on in life, like, oh my God, yeah, Rotterdam, that church and that community, they were a cult. But then the thing that really got me at the end of that article was she said, and I still read the Bible, and I still try to understand, and I still try to speak to those people. And that was hard.
Jeez.
Because that introduced to me the idea that, oh, I don't have to be a bitter, salty atheist who's bitching about God all day. I can say, like, no, this is a, faltering community, and I still seek to understand, religion and Christianity and the gospel and the scriptures. But so I came back from the Netherlands very disillusioned and hurt, but still a believer at the end of the day. I still prayed, and maybe a little less, and my faith felt less straightforward, but it was still genuine. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know how to make sense of this or that or miracles or. And so I went to Wheaton College in Chicago, thinking like, okay, well, maybe I can have a refined academic faith.
Yeah, that's almost kind of what I wondered. Like, going there, you thought maybe what you were missing was sort of the academic angle, or like just kind of a more... Because I mean, you were already doing a lot of... You were autodidactically pursuing, knowledge of the church fathers and all this stuff that I didn't know anybody else who had read the stuff you were reading. So, I mean, you knew a lot of shit.
Yeah. And maybe that was one of the other things, was like, maybe I just wanted to feel less lonely. I wanted to feel like other Christians actually cared about history and science and, actually understanding their faith rather than just, it sounds good enough to me. Time to go take to the streets and protest at the abortion clinic. And, which I did, So I went to Wheaton, or go ahead.
Well, I don't want to skip something important, but I just mean, I was just going to ask, like, after Wheaton was 3-4 years, how long was the program? 4 years?
Wheaton was a 4-year program.
4 years, okay. So you got to the end of the 4 years. Was that almost sort of like a testing period of like, okay, let's give this another try? And at the end, it just, okay, didn't really give me, didn't give me that thing I was looking for. So I guess we're done.
You're talking about at Wheaton.
Yeah.
So no, it was before that. Okay. So I officially deconverted between my sophomore and junior year at Wheaton.
Okay.
And it was the perfect time. I because I got to experience enough of Wheaton as a believer and got to interact with other believers on campus in the context of faith, in the context of saying, okay, these are my brothers and sisters in Christ, to then being able to transition my junior year and say, like, no, these are people that I love. This is a community that I love. And I love them and care about them, but I'm not one with them in the way that they conceptualize it. And I think that that was really healing for me in a lot of ways, being able to, and I was open about it, especially my senior year, where I, would just sit down with some of my professors, some of my classmates, and just be like, yeah, I'm an atheist. And they would be so gracious and compassionate and be like, yeah, man, no, shit's hard. I understand. And they would seek to understand, and I would, but it was also like, God, I mean, my professors there were so kind and so gracious. And they were like, yeah, man, there's no shame. There's no judgment. Like, we're here to
it's probably just because they were Christians, Jared. It's just Christianity. Because, you're not going to get that from atheists.
I mean, I don't know. That's probably less of a question of like Christianity versus atheism, but more of a question of like, oh, what kind of an education did you get? If you're in a public university with 500 people in your lecture hall, yeah, no fucking way your professor's gonna give a shit about you. Like, no, my professors did. The thing, there wasn't really a tipping point. I was talking to a friend about it last night. A lot of Christians want to conceptualize it as like, so what was the one thing that made you say fuck God? It's like, dude, okay, no, there wasn't. First of all, I don't say fuck God. Secondly, there wasn't one thing. It wasn't like, oh yeah, my dad died, and then I was like, me. No, it was like all of the things that held together my tapestry of faith were slowly plucked one by one until I didn't really have a faith left. And then when it came to that point, those threads, those fibers, it's like, well, I believe in God because of the inerrancy of Scripture. Okay, well, Peter didn't write 2 Peter. Okay, well, okay, all right. Well, I believe in God because of this miracle that happened to me when I was 15. Okay, well, in hindsight, it was probably a placebo mixed with some wishful thinking, and probably not actually. And okay, well, I believe in God because of the infallibility of the testimony of the resurrection, and okay, well, and so on and so forth. And by the time that most of those fibers had been plucked, it was like, well, in what meaningful context can I call myself a Christian anymore? And then the real paradigm shift was like, okay, because the deeper this got, I was not okay. I was not well. And the thought, that same terror and dread that I had at 13 of the idea of there being a universe without a God, there's nobody up there to hold the corners of the fabric of the universe together. That scared the shit out of me as a 13-year-old, and as a 23-year-old. It was still scary, but it was also just this hopeless, sinking feeling. And when I gave into that, I really wanted to die. And when it just seemed like, oh my God, life has no meaning, everything is going to be forgotten, nothing means anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's devastating. Like, I was able to talk to another, I guess, sort of acquaintance, sort of friend. We've only talked a few times, but well, actually, I guess you know him. He played Jimmy on Adventures in Odyssey. But we got to talk, and we did one of these together, and he's the only person I know that, like, well, I mean, maybe there's more people I know, but I haven't talked to them about it. The first person I really have talked to about their attempts at committing suicide. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what goes, like, why, how do you get to that place? Because I was like, okay, is it just like those moments where you just think about, oh, I could jump off of this train right now, or I could jump out of this car? Is it just one of those that just kind of sticks around? And he described it as like, it's this, it's the feeling that when you really actually don't believe that things could get any better, then you're basically saying, okay, I forfeit the game. It's just this kind of giving up because it's just, I mean, and that's what you do in any team game, any video game. Okay, it's not possible to win now, so
rage quit.
GG. This is over. It's not just this manic thing that takes over. It's just like, okay, reasonably, I can't actually win. I don't believe in hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that was the thing that, like, made Christianity so palpable to me was, there was meaning. You had a purpose. You were a co-laborer of Christ. You were bringing God's will to earth. You were making what was crooked in the world straight again. All those TV shows and books that you read as a kid. There's somebody who's got a mission. They're doing something important. And then you realize that no, that type of life is not possible to live, because there is no mission. There is no better. There is no good. And no matter how hard you try, it is not possible to live a life that is worth living. And so when I finally sank into that reality, or that belief, and then the thought of suicide becoming like, I never had a suicide attempt, right? There was never a note, there was never a bullet in the gun. But it was too close to comfort. And for the sake of your listeners, I'm not going to get into the exact,
Sure.
What it looked like, me fantasizing about suicide. But that was the breaking point where I was like, okay, I don't really believe in any of this anymore. I want to die. I need a change ASAP, or I don't know if I'm going to make it through this summer. And so that was when I started being medicated on a really good antidepressant and sex. And it's like, at that point, it's like, I have too much respect for Christianity as a religion to bastardize it like that and say like, oh yeah, I have premarital sex and I'm on board with, X or Y political movements. And yeah, I don't think that like Jesus actually rose from the dead. But yeah, I'm still a Christian. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. If the Apostle Paul was here, he wouldn't look at you and be like, oh, you have like a little bit of an abstract faith, but still it's like, no, you're bullshitting yourself. It's not Christianity. Just deconvert already. Just it upsets me. It's like, nothing about your worldview is Christian anymore. Just own your shit and quit dragging God into it. Quit dragging Christ into it. And so like, yeah, no, there's no way in which I, as a 23-year-old man going on casual Tinder hookups, and who isn't in a body of believers, and who isn't praying, and isn't, none of that. That's not Christianity. It's one thing to go through a dark season of the soul, and it's one thing to have a slip up and oopsie daisies, but no, the New Testament is clear on that. No fornicator will enter the kingdom of heaven. It says that in Colossians. And so you got to deal with that. So yeah, I claimed the title of atheist when I was 23, between junior and senior year of Wheaton. I'm sorry, between sophomore and junior year.
Yep.
And
was that kind of freeing to be able to say at first, or did it just feel kind of like inflicting a sort of doom on yourself?
It was both. It was both. Because, it felt like long term, I was out of the battle. I'm sorry, no, short term, I was out of the battle, but long term, I was losing the war. Because, all right, finally, I don't have to keep striving. I don't have to keep trying to piece all of these fragments of faith together and sew them into some sort of tapestry of faith that's tattered and full of holes. So just being able to say, like, no, I just don't fucking know.
I remember giving you a piece of advice at that time. We were talking back and forth. I think I encouraged you to just be an atheist.
Really?
Well, I'm not sure how it landed, but I remember what I said, and I was pretty proud of it. I don't even know if it landed or not, but I still think, that was a smart saying. You thought of something real smart there, Garrett. What I remember saying is that faith isn't logic. Faith isn't just working out the problem and then doing what seems to be the right thing to do. Faith is stepping out onto something you really don't know. You really don't know what's on the other side. Asking the question you don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
And so I remember saying, the only thing you could do to really have faith would be to stop saying you're a Christian. Like that would be actually having faith, sort of in whatever it is. It's sort of stepping out in faith anyways. Like I don't think, it's still just thinking about the relationship I've had with faith and I guess with religion. I should distinguish the two. But it's like I don't think that I don't think you're really having an experience of faith if you just kind of try to believe something, or say that you believe something when you really don't. And it's like you're actually afraid of the answer on the other side of that question. And it's like faith would be to say, okay, I don't know what's on the other side, but I'm going to open the door.
Right.
It's like, I think that's like sort of to be faithful to life, or to I don't know. I don't know why I can't explain it deeper than that, but it's just like, it's really a stepping out in faith. Like you're stepping out and just not necessarily faith in a certain result happening, but saying, I'm willing to give myself over to this. And, like, I think that's a deeper faith in life. Maybe life is an easier abstraction to build a relationship with than God, when God has so much baggage for us.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Fair enough.
So I'm proud of you, Jared.
For being an atheist?
For being an atheist.
I love the shit out of you, turd.
So you finished Wheaton. I don't know. You did a freaking metal album about comparing Islam and Christianity, which is pretty awesome.
So I went into Wheaton as an ancient languages major, and first year went by, second year went by, and then I was really like, I'm not fucking good at this. I'm really bad at this. I do not have the mind of a philologist. And then I was like, well, shit, it's too late now to like pivot and choose a totally different major. And even then I was like, but none of these majors like sound exciting. Mm-hmm. And they're all kind of bullshit. You know, like, I think the statistic is like 50% of undergrads go into fields not related to their major. So I was like, well, what's the fucking point? You know, I can get a degree in English writing or psychology or philosophy, but it doesn't fucking matter. So I was like, that was also one of the things that really, you know, sent me through that stretch of season was really depressing to me. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck I wanted to do with my life. And so somehow or another, I stumbled onto the interdisciplinary studies major at Wheaton, which turns out is the second interdisciplinary studies program in the nation. You know, it's good shit. And so I somehow concocted. I jumped through all kinds of loopholes to make it process happen. So I ended up combining theology, ancient languages, and digital audio engineering. And my senior thesis was to write and record a heavy metal album about the theological controversy between Christians, Muslims, and Jews, centering around the episode of Abraham sacrificing his son. So it was an 11-song metal album and a 93-page research paper. And I'm damn proud of it.
It's stuck with me.
I found a way out. What, the music or the?
I mean, I don't think I read the whole thing of the paper at any point. I don't even know if you gave me a link to it at any point. But the conversations that we've had about the concept, like, I love what you were doing, what you were thinking about, what you were talking about. I think that was a great project.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, every work of academia should be that fun and that passionate. Yeah, and that was one of the things that I wrote about in the paper was like part of my project was having to justify to professors like, yeah, why write an 11-song metal album instead of just, you know, write a research paper? Well, you know, for starters, who in the hell goes around reading undergraduate research papers? Like if you're doing theology, you don't read an undergraduate paper, you read a professional paper done by a PhD student or professor.
Yeah.
Same thing with like any field, you know, you're not going to read, you know, facts about biology from an undergrad. You just don't do that. It's bullshit. So like, I just need to write stuff that's going to be not read. That's stupid. Well, so like, what do I have to offer as an undergraduate student? Well, I can answer the question, why should I give a damn? And that's what I did.
That's good. So did that help you? I don't know. That helped you kind of get through those last 2 years?
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, I would have felt so much shame and regret had I graduated with some, you know, bullshit undergraduate degree. Like, oh, yeah, I was a psychology undergraduate and I don't have anything to show for it. And I can't get a job in psychology because I'm not, you know, a master's or a PhD student. And it would have been even worse had I stuck with ancient languages, because then it's like, well, I have a degree in it. I can't do anything with it. And I don't really know shit about it. Because like, even now, you know, I took 4 semesters of Greek. My Greek is shit. I can't do shit with it. And had I taken 8 semesters of Greek, I still wouldn't be able to just like, Indiana Jones style, like, oh, this ancient manuscript, it says, and then in the last days, there will be a famine caused by Bill Nye the Science Guy. Like the way that people, they're like, oh, what does this word in Greek mean? It's like, fuck if I know, give me a fucking lexicon. And so it's just like, you can't do anything with it. At least with my major, it's bullshit. I can't get like a direct job with it, but at least it's cool. At least I can brag to people about it. At least I can be like, yeah, check it out on Spotify.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, no matter what you're studying, just do something memorable. Do something crazy. Do something fun. Do something that makes your life feel like it's worth living. Because for a while it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning how to cope with the what I believe to be the meaninglessness of life. And it's like, well, shit. If I'm here, I might as well do something interesting. Do something that I think is, fun as I pass the time.
Mm-hmm. But just saying that, if you wanted to try to be all logical and rigorous with it, you could, that's just hedonism. You're just trying to find pleasure in life. But is that, that's the way you think about it?
Yeah. Either I find a way to enjoy the game or I quit playing.
But is the game about enjoying it?
I don't think it's about anything. I don't think that there's rules or a scoreboard or winners or losers. I think we're all just in an open server doing shit before the computer gets unplugged. And I really don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you've talked. You gave me the sort of thought experiment of like, if life is just a dream, then you'll wake up sometime, and then will the dream have mattered? And like logically, it sounds like no, it shouldn't matter. But like
viscerally,
yeah, and even I guess what I know now about cognitive science, not that I studied it. Well, I've studied it. I studied it personally, but I don't have any degree. You can't, don't hold me to any record here. But what I feel like I know about the brain now, or about psychology, I don't know, is dreams do kind of matter, even if you don't remember them, because your conscious mind isn't much of your mind. Most of your mind is unconscious. Most of your brain is unconscious. Most of your thoughts, your memories, most of what makes you is not what you even realize is you. And it doesn't matter whether you consciously remember stuff. It shapes you.
Sure. So let me break this down, and I'll give the full, story and analogy for those who are new. So the idea is one that I've come up with, and one that I hope to write about in a future setting. The idea is called temporopathic irrelevance. Kind of sounds like a sushi roll now that I say it out loud. But so temporopathic irrelevance.
I'll have that. That sounds good.
Oh, extra soy sauce? Oh, divine. The idea of it is that if suffering is temporary and not eternal, then it doesn't matter. So, it's a bold claim, but there's kind of a troubling question of like, okay, well, what do we make of that? If we take seriously the proposition that the universe is going to end one day, the sun will be blotted out, all life is going to die, the universe will go cold, and it will be nothing. everything will be forgotten. Everything will be forgotten. And we don't have a good metric for knowing what that's like. But, you know, one analogy that I like to use is imagine you wake up from a dream and you say, I have no memory of the dream that I just dreamt. It would be weird if you said, yeah, I don't have any memory of the dream that I just dreamt, but I hope it was a good dream. Well, it's like, well, that's weird. And what do you mean by that? You hope it was a good dream. Why would you hope that? Well, I hope that it was a good dream because it probably filled my brain with dopamine, and I am the recipient of that dopamine here and now. Okay, so this is kind of where the analogy breaks down, but imagine if you had no benefit in the here and now from a good thing that happened in the past that you don't remember. You have no benefit from it. You have no memory of it. We don't go around saying like, oh man, I really worry about, you know, the people in Pompeii. You know, I really hope that they were safe and okay. Like, we don't think like that. And we don't concern ourselves with the pain that we experienced before, you know, we reached infancy, where, you know, like, yeah, we don't remember the aches and pains and bumps and bruises that we got as a baby. They don't matter.
Okay. Can I? So for one thing, I should kind of warn you. We've got about 20 minutes left, and then I've got to teach a lesson. So got to make sure even if it's like 30 seconds before he gets here, but because I feel like this is where I knew we were headed, and I feel like this conversation we could sit and talk about for another 3 hours, and I hope to, but you know, we're going to stop recording in 20 minutes. The way you just described good is a pretty deeply conflating good with pleasure. Again.
Sure. Well, so that's not the point.
Well, it is, from my perspective, this is the sort of problem you run into if you think that you can understand the world, or if you're really trying to understand the world. So you're thinking about things, okay, I learned a little bit about the brain, know about dopamine. Okay, so it might give me dopamine, and then dopamine, I like dopamine. Dopamine is like goodness. But like, people who aren't smart or who aren't intellectuals I don't think that people think that way, and I don't think that if I'm not operating on, you know, in intellectual mode where I try to explain everything, that's not really, even when I'm just trying to be honest with myself, I don't think that's what I think of when I think of what goodness is. Because the whole point of abstractions like goodness, especially goodness, because I would say that's one of the highest abstractions, or the most abstract abstractions, is that it's not anything in particular. Goodness is literally not anything. Nothing is good.
So I want to make sure that I'm tracking with you as it pertains to the analogy and the point of the metaphor.
So if I say I had the dream, I hope it was a good one. If I was to say that, I would mean I hope that in some way it affects reality in a way that is good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm not pretending to know what that goodness would be.
So I don't know that you have to know what the goodness is. But you know, there is a desirable outcome and an undesirable outcome, and you can bicker about the ins and outs of that. So to give a different analogy, you're building a sandcastle right before the shore. Okay, so what kind of a sandcastle are you going to build? Are you going to, you know, expend all of your energy? Are you going to, you know, build something that's 13 feet high and super ornate or elaborate, or are you going to build, something fun that's, casual, or, choose whatever metric you like. But you're building a sandcastle and the shore comes and washes it all away. And you can walk away from that instance and say, well, okay, yeah, the sandcastle isn't there anymore, but at least my memory of it is. At least I still carry with me the joy of having, worked hard, done something meaningful, made something beautiful. Well, what if you built a sandcastle, the shore swept it away, and then you had no memory of it? Does it matter what kind of sandcastle you built?
See, I see why this is where you're getting to, but that's not the way I think about life.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and it's not the way that we're built to think about life.
No, it's not the way we're even evolved to think about life. Because
exactly,
and so it comes down to whether or not you think evolution is sort of a farce, or it's pragmatism is a farce to just get us to continue to exist, or if there's... See, I was thinking about this the other day. So if somebody asked me, okay, so is that... I was saying something about the way, we see kind of like harmonic relationships within different contexts. We like the way certain colors go together, and the math there, as far as color relationships, actually overlaps with the musical harmony and stuff like that. And she's like, well, okay, is that just our psychology? Are we just kind of projecting that into the world, or is the world sort of really like that? And I'm interested actually to see what you think of this point, because I thought, okay, and I just kind of started riffing because I was excited. It was a fun conversation. I was like, okay, let me see what I can do with this. Well, okay, probably whatever is the more fundamental force is going to shape the other. And so even if human psychology or the human psyche could sort of project a certain story onto reality for a while, ultimately, I think there must be some problem with this argument, but it's rung true to me for long enough that I keep on thinking that things that last for a long period of time, that are kind of... I don't know if rigorous is the right word, but things that sort of seem to be to cooperate with reality for long periods of time are sort of reflecting the nature of reality in a way that, at least that works with it. So it's like, okay, so they're sort of lining up. They're becoming sort of fitted with reality. So memes that last, genes that last. That it seems to me that you could infer that might tell you at least a foggy picture, or at least is sort of relating, so seeing through a glass darkly, relating and pointing your attention towards the fundamental nature of reality.
Yeah. But I don't know if the fundamental nature of reality means anything in the way that we conceive of it. So, I mean, this is really hard, abstract shit to put into language. But I'm imagining, the Big Bang happening and all of the atoms and quarks and everything else, scrambling to arrange themselves into some fundamental matter that is stable, right? And you and I have Andrew Gaskin, who loves this idea of novelty and the stasis,
yeah.
right?
And the relationship between the two.
Exactly. And he's got some
the Holy Trinity
thing. But to me, it's like, okay, well, if God, I'm going to sound like such an idiot trying to talk about this, because I know very little about particle physics or quantum mechanics or anything like that. But it's like, okay, just imagine, for the sake of a stupid man's argument, that all of the atoms in the universe are squares, Okay. And then, the Big Bang happens and all this chaos happens and, all of the squares are shot out into the universe and it's chaos. Well, then, millions of billions of years and the universe is sifting itself and the earth is sifting itself and creation is sifting itself. And then you get life and some of the squares get more, sifted out into, stacking on top of each other in the most efficiently compacted way possible. And then you get life, and then you get apes, and then you get humans, and then you get civilization. And it's like more and more of these squares are aligning into squares. The cosmos is aligning itself into the way that it was meant to be. But what the fuck does that mean? Mm-hmm. And why is it? Well, why is it squares rather than triangles or hexagons or whatever else? It seems like
no, I totally
okay.
I agree with you there. That what the fuck does it mean? And the part of me that earnestly wants to believe doesn't believe in a specific answer to that question. It's just the part of me that's interested in continuing to ask that question, what does it mean? And it isn't comfortable with the answer, oh, it means this, or it means nothing.
Okay.
It's just that sense of wonder of, oh, what does it mean? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So that's something that I can respect and have admiration for, with or without my atheism. I mean, the sense of wonder and curiosity. At the end of the day, that's all some people have.
It's interesting to me that some people can. Like, I look at Jonathan Peugeot, he really deeply believes some stuff. I don't know how, I've been thinking about how belief even works. I don't even know how I could believe anything as deeply as he. I mean, I can think about times in my life where I really tried to believe stuff. But belief is such a weird, tricky. I don't know how you believe something. I can't force myself to believe something. I can't argue myself into believing something. I don't even know when I'm believing something. It just, sometimes I'm like, oh, I kind of think, maybe I believe that, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just at a weird place and some people can believe stuff just more comfortably. But I mean, like, believing in existence, believing in anything at all. Like, to me, it feels like the same leap of faith to believe that I exist, that reality is even real. Not that it's necessarily the same in scale, but it's the same kind of leap to believe that as to believe that there is a cosmic meaning.
Right.
I mean, it's like I don't know if I exist. I should probably be more certain of that.
I mean, it helps when you're grocery shopping. It's like, okay, I need to pick up bread. Fuck, wait, do I even exist first? Hold on.
Okay, so assuming, for the sake of argument, supposing I existed, and supposing, okay, you're going to argue with me here, but let's go further and say that bread exists too.
Okay, hypothetically. Okay, gang. Hypothetically, what if I were to tell you?
Okay, folks.
Listen, gang. Also, Garrett, my battery. I am charging my battery as we speak, but
you have a broken battery?
It is. Maybe I do, but it's draining faster than it's charging.
Okay.
So there's a chance that this call might get.
Okay.
Might get.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
We can still hang out for a couple more minutes until it dies, because I've got a few more minutes. I mean, if you have faith that your computer might last.
None whatsoever.
Sorry, I realize I've been doing a bit of the talking here as far, but this is stuff that I've wanted to bounce off of you for a while, and I don't know. Does that sound like a fair comparison? Believing in myself and believing in God.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I think that's God. I mean, that's something that I've that was instrumental in my Christianity for years. It's like, all right, well, I already believe in other minds, right? Like I believe that you're not a figment of my imagination. That's a leap of faith because I can't prove that qualitatively. I believe that that the universe was not created 7 minutes ago. That all of my memories are actual memories and not implanted by some, alien species. So that's a leap of faith. There's all kinds of things that it's like we assume. We assume this is base reality. We believe that we're not in a simulation, and all of those things are unprovable. And so it's like, yeah. So it also seems reasonable to believe in a purpose, right? Because how could you disprove something like that? And so I think that seems like a perfectly rational, leap of faith to take. Yeah, and I mean, it's not one that I take, but
Well, to get Jordan Petersonian on you. Do you? I mean, you are deciding to be alive right now. And is it just? I mean, I guess you've already kind of answered this question. It's like, okay, so might as well have a good time while I'm here, anyways. Because I mean, I don't that wouldn't be a convincing enough argument for me. It's like I think that might be the argument I need to hold on to for a time, because there's some deeper intuition that I think I need to be alive for some reason, but I don't know what it is.
So here's the tricky thing. This is less of a philosophical question and more of a psychological question. We have this intuition that I'm here for a purpose. I have meaning. And all of that is kind of wrapped up in morality as well. Like I have this deep-seated intuition that rape and murder are wrong. I feel that very deeply, very viscerally. And where does that come from? Do I feel that way because it aligns with the cosmic order of the universe? The God who created the heavens and the earth placed that desire in me, and it aligns with, the true state of creation, or is it an accident? And the way that I compare this, or the thing that I compare this to, the analog, is I compare it to other deep-seated feelings that we have as people. So, last summer I got really into swimming. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and do 15 laps in the pool outside of my parents' house. And, I did that for months. Wake up, jump in a pool. But never did I not fear the damn shark in the pool. Now, Garrett, I know that there's not a fucking shark in that goddamn 20-foot pool. There's not. But every time I would jump off the diving board into the pool, I would still have to viscerally turn around and make sure that there's not a shark chasing me. I felt that deeply, palpably, in the same way that I feel that meaning and morality exist. I feel those things deeply, but I don't think they're rational. I don't think they're real. I think they are as delusory and happenstance as my fear of sharks in a freshwater pool. Now, I can't get away from that fear in the same way that I can't get away from morality. It's too deeply baked in there. You know, I can pontificate all day long about how I don't believe in morality and I don't believe in right and wrong. But I'm still going to have a visceral reaction if I see a man hit a woman. I will flip over a table, I will run, and somebody's, you know, there will be blood, right? No matter how much I pontificate about, you know, the meaninglessness of life and the lack of morality in the universe, I will still feel that, and I will not be able to get over that instinct, right? I mean, it's like, you know, no matter how there was an old story about an old cowboy, wise old cowboy who would go from bar to bar, and he had a copperhead, you know, a poisonous snake, and he kept it in a glass box, right? And he would take it from bar to bar, and he would say, "Hey, I'll bet you $50 that you can't keep your hand on the glass for longer than 10 seconds." And he would, you know, challenge all kinds of people, and they'd be like, 10 seconds? Pfft, yeah, I'd do that. So they pop $50 on the table, and they put their hand on the glass, and, you know, 1, 2, 3, and almost like clockwork, the snake would snap, and it would strike at the glass, trying to bite the person. Well, cognitively, the person knows, like, there's a glass jar there. You know, there's a glass wall. I'm fine. I'm safe. But everyone viscerally reacts. You can't not. Everyone does that. And likewise, no matter how aware I am and how much I believe in the glass, metaphorically speaking, the absence of morality, I will never not be able to viscerally react to a man hitting a woman, a child being molested. I'm stuck with those things.
Yeah. It's difficult to tell the difference between a glitch and a feature.
Well, I mean, a feature to what end?
Yeah,
that's another way of phrasing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're willing to throw this stuff at me now. I had to search around for conundrums to grate on my brain when you wouldn't tell me what you were thinking, but I'm glad you're willing to. I mean, this isn't just this moment. I know we've been able to get into this stuff in recent years, and I appreciate that a lot. It feels a lot like, I don't know, there's a trust there, and I think there's a faith there, Jared.
All I need is mustard seed, boy.
Sorry, I keep on sneaking in these silly jokes, but no, I love you, man. I'm thankful you were willing to do this and to do it recorded.
Of course. Yeah, I'm going to ask you to censor like half of this, but
okay, all right. All right, dude. I got to shut it down, but thanks for doing it. Thanks for telling this story. I think some people are going to appreciate this.
I hope so.
I appreciate
Love the
it.
piss out of you, man.
You too, man. Talk to you later.
You got it.
Well, that was interesting. If you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to share it with a friend. Or, even better, take whatever you found interesting here and go and have a real face-to-face conversation with somebody that you care about, or somebody that you don't understand very well. I think face-to-face conversation is one of the most important tools that we have for building and maintaining real relationships and real communities. Many institutions in our lives have an incentive to crowd out these longer, more engaging interactions with short-form junk food content. The point of this project for me is to spend some time pushing back against some of those forces in my life. I want to practice listening to and engaging with people that I don't necessarily understand very well. I also want to spend some time listening to and learning from some people who seem to to have a good track record of listening to and engaging with people that they disagree with. If you're interested in working on some of this stuff too, feel free to keep up with this project by subscribing and pressing the little bell thingy that lets YouTube know that you want to keep seeing these videos. I really think that if we can get better at conversation, we might actually change the world. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.